Chapter 2, Holes. Page 22. The sentience that we experience as consciousness has its precursors in the adaptive processes of life in general. They are two extreme ends of a single thread of evolution. So it's not just mind that requires us to come to a scientific understanding of end-directed forms of causality, it's life itself. What's missing? This missing explanation exposes a large and gaping hole in our understanding of the world. It has been there for millennia. For most of this time, it was merely a mysterious distinction. But as our scientific and technological powers have grown to the point that we are unwittingly interfering with the metabolism of our entire planet, our inability to fill in this explanatory hole has become more and more problematic. In recent centuries, scientists' ceaseless probing into the secrets of nature has triumphed over mystery upon mystery. In just the past century, scientists have harnessed the power of the stars to produce electric power or to destroy whole cities. They have identified and catalogued the details of the molecular basis for biological inheritance, and they have designed machines that, in fractions of a second, can perform calculations that would have taken thousands of people thousands of years to complete. Yet this success has also unwittingly undercut the motivation that has been its driving force: faith in the intrinsic value for humankind that such knowledge would provide. Not only have some of the most elegant discoveries been turned into horrific uses, but applying our most sophisticated scientific tools to the analysis of human life and mind has apparently demoted rather than ennobled the human spirit. It's not just that we have failed to uncover the twists of physics and chemistry that set us apart from the non-living world. Our scientific theories have failed to explain what matters most to us, the place of meaning, purpose, and value in the physical world. Our scientific theories haven't exactly failed. Rather, they have carefully excluded these phenomena from our consideration and treated them as irrelevant. This is because the content of a thought, the goal of an action, or the conscious appreciation of an experience all share a troublesome feature that appears to make them unsuited for scientific study. They aren't exactly anything physical, even though they depend on the material processes going on in brains. Ask yourself, what does it mean to be reading these words? To provide an adequate answer, it is unnecessary to include information about the histories of the billions of atoms constituting the paper and ink or electronic book in front of you. An Appalachian demon might know the origins of these atoms in ancient burned-out stars and the individual trajectories that eventually caused them to end up as you see them, but this complete physical knowledge wouldn't provide any clue to their meaning. Of course, these physical details, and vastly many more, are a critical part of the story, but even this complete physical description wouldn't include the most crucial, causal fact of the matter. You are reading these words because of something that they and you are not, the ideas they convey. Whatever else you can say about these ideas, it is clear that they are not the stuff that you and this book are made of. The problem is this: such concepts as information, function, purpose, meaning, intention, significance, consciousness, and value are intrinsically defined by their fundamental incompleteness. They exist only in relation to something that they are. Thus, the information provided by this book is not the paper and ink or electronic medium that conveys it. The cleaning function of soap is not merely its chemical interaction with water and oils. The regulatory function of a stop sign is not the wood, the metal, and paint that it is composed of, or even its distinctive shape. And the aesthetic value of a sculpture is not constituted by the chemistry of the marble, its weight, or its colour. The something that each of these is not is precisely what matters most. But notice the paradox in this English standard phrase. To, quote, matter is to be substantial, to resist modification, to be beyond creation or destruction. And yet what matters about an idea or purpose is dependent on something that is not substantial in any obvious sense. So what is shared in common between all these phenomena? In a word, nothing. Or rather, something not present. In the last chapter, I introduced the somewhat clumsy term essential to refer to the essential absent feature of each of these kinds of phenomena. This doesn't quite tell the whole story, however, because, as should already be obvious from the examples just discussed, the role that absence plays in these very phenomena is different in each case, and it's not just something missing, but an orientation towards, or existence conditional upon, this something not there. The most characteristic and developed exemplar of an absential relationship is purpose. Historically, the concept of purpose has been a persistent source of controversy for both philosophers and scientists. The philosophical term for the study of purposive phenomena is teleology, literally the logic of end-directedness. The term has its roots in ancient Greek. Curiously, there are two different ancient Greek roots that get transcribed into English as tele, and each is relevant in its own way. The first, also meaning end, is the one from which teleology derives. It can variously mean completion, end, goal, or purpose, so that teleology refers to the study of purposeful phenomena. The second, roughly translated as afar, forms the familiar prefix of such English terms as telescope, telephone, television, telemetry, and telepathy, all of which imply relationship to something occurring at a distance, or despite the physical discontinuity. Though the concept of teleology specifically derived from this first derivation of tele, by coincidence of transliteration, and possibly by some deeper etymological sound symbolism, the concept of separateness and physical displacement indicated by the second is also relevant. We recognize teleological phenomena by their development towards something they are not, for which they are implicitly determined with respect to. Without this intrinsic incompleteness, they would merely be objects or events. It is the end for the sake of which they exist, the possible state of things that they bring closer to existing, that characterizes them. Teleology also involves such relationships as representation, meaning, and relevance. A purpose is something represented. The missing something that characterizes each of these semiotic relationships can simply be physically or temporally dissociated from that which is present, or it can be more metaphorically distant in the sense of being abstract, potential, or only hypothetically existing. In these phenomena, there is no disposition to bring the missing something into existence, only a marking of the essential relationship of what is present to something not present. Page 27. I propose that we use the term intentional as a generic adjective to describe all phenomena that are intrinsically incomplete in the sense of being in relationship to, constituted by, or organized to achieve something non-intrinsic. By combining the prefix "n" for in or within with the adjective form meaning something like inclined towards, I hope to signal this deep and typically ignored commonality that exists in all the various phenomena that include within them a fundamental relationship to something absent. Intentional phenomena include functions that have satisfaction conditions, adaptations that have environmental correlates, thoughts that have contents, purposes that have goals, subjective experiences that have a self-other perspective, and values that have a self that benefits or is harmed. Although functions, adaptations, thoughts, purposes, subjective experiences, and values each have distinct attributes that distinguish them, they all also have an orientation to a specific constitutive absence, a particular and precise missing something that is their critical defining attribute. When talking about cognitive and semiotic topics, sign processes, I will, however, continue to use the colloquial terminology of teleology, purpose, meaning, intention, interpretation, and sentience. And when talking about living processes that do not involve any obvious mental features, I will likewise continue to use the standard terminology of function, information, receptor, regulation, and adaptation. But when referring to all such phenomena in general, I will use intention to characterize their internal relationship to a telos, an end, or otherwise displaced and thus non-present something, or possible something. As an analysis of the concept of teleology demonstrates, different intentional phenomena depend on and are interrelated with one another in an asymmetrical and hierarchical way. For example, purposive behaviors depend on represented ends. Representations depend on informational relationships. Information depends on functional organization, and biological functions are organized with respect to their value in promoting survival, well-being, and an organism's reproductive potential. This hierarchic dependence becomes clear when we consider some of the simplest intentional processes, such as functional relationships